005042026 JTV. Okay, I didn't know you went to school in North London. SADIQ Khan. 10003 on the UK time. Yes, people. JTV 050422026. Yes. Oh no, I missed it. Let's do some damage. Yes, the sun is shining. The sun is shining. Well done there now. Okay, next. Oh, good God.
The street in South London was quiet, the kind of stillness that usually feels like safety until it doesn't. It was 9:40 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the yellow glow of the street lamps caught something out of place. A heavy black holdall sitting abandoned by the curbside, just a stone's throw from the mayor's front door. Inside the house, SADIQ Khan was likely unaware of the breach. Outside, a young couple walking past spotted the bag. To a passerby in London, an unattended bag is usually a cause for a see it, say it, sorted alarm, but the reality of this one was far more jarring. Jordan, a local scaffolder, and his pregnant partner approached it with a mix of curiosity and caution. When Jordan unzipped the bag in the safety of his home to see what was inside, the weight of the situation became literal. Staring back at him wasn't just a misplaced gym kit or groceries, but a professional arsenal. An MP5 semi-automatic carbine, a Glock pistol, a taser, boxes of live ammunition. For a few minutes, the air in the room felt thin. The realization that these were Metropolitan Police weapons, specifically those belonging to the Elite Specialist Protection Command, RASP, tasked with guarding the mayor, was staggering. Jordan called the police immediately. Within 7 minutes, the quiet street was flooded with blue lights and officers who looked, in Jordan's words, really shocked. They took the bag, but the damage to the Met's reputation was already done. The fallout was swift. 1. The investigation. The Met's Directorate of Professional Standards launched an urgent review. 2. Suspensions. 5 officers were immediately removed from frontline duties. 3. The statement. A spokesperson for the mayor called it a very serious incident, while the Met admitted the weapons had been misplaced by on-duty officers. The story became a strange footnote in the history of London security, a moment where the very wall of protection surrounding one of the city's highest officials was accidentally left sitting on the pavement, waiting for a member of the public to pick it up. Sadiq Aman Khan is a British politician and attorney who has served as the Mayor of London since 2016. A member of the Labour Party, he is the first Muslim to serve as the mayor of a major Western capital. Early life and education. Background. Born on October 8, 1970, in Tooting, South London, Khan was the fifth of 8 children. His parents immigrated to Britain from Pakistan shortly before his birth. Working class roots. He grew up in a 3-bedroom council flat on the Henry Prince estate. His father, Amanullah, worked as a London bus driver for 25 years, and his mother, Serun, was a seamstress. Education. Khan attended Ernest Bevin College, a local comprehensive school. He initially considered becoming a dentist, but was encouraged by a teacher to study law. He graduated from the University of North London in 1991. Legal and early political career. Human rights lawyer. Khan qualified as a solicitor in 1994 and specialized in human rights and actions against the police. By age 27, he was a partner at the firm Christian Khan. Local politics. He began his political career as a councillor for the London Borough of Wandsworth, serving from 1994 to 2006. Member of Parliament. In 2005, he was elected as the MP for Tooting. Under Gordon Brown's government, he served as Minister of State for Communities, and later Minister of State for Transport, becoming the first Muslim and first Asian to attend the UK Cabinet. Mayoralty, 2016 present. First term, 2016. Khan was elected Mayor of London, defeating Conservative candidate Zach Goldsmith. His early tenure focused on freezing transport fares and launching the Hopper bus fare. Second term, 2021. Despite the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, he secured a second term. He gained significant attention for expanding the Ultra-Low Emission Zone, ULEZ, to improve air quality, a policy that became both highly praised and controversial. Third term, 2024. Khan made history in May 2024 by becoming the first person to be elected Mayor of London for a third term, defeating Susan Hall. Current status, 2026. As of early 2026, Sir SADIQ Khan, who received a knighthood for public service in 2024, continues to lead London. Recent reports have even suggested he may stand for a fourth term in 2028, or potentially move to the House of Lords. Key initiatives and challenges. Housing. A primary focus on building genuinely affordable homes and supporting renters. Climate. Championing London's transition to a net zero city through transport electrification and ULEZ. Public safety. Navigating complex issues regarding the Metropolitan Police and youth violence. International profile. Khan has been a vocal critic of Brexit and has maintained a high international profile, occasionally clashing with global figures like President Donald Trump over issues of immigration and security. The wind coming off the common didn't feel like a spring breeze, it felt like a warning. For a 17-year-old like me, half Nigerian, half Irish, and 100% South Londoner, Clapham Common has always been a bit of a shapeshifter. Usually, it's the land of overpriced lattes, weekend joggers, and people playing frisbee like they don't have a care in the world. But in March 2021, the vibe shifted. It went cold. The unrest, through my eyes. I remember standing near the bandstand. It wasn't a party unrest, it was heavy. People were there for Sarah Everard, but for someone like me, the tension with the Met Police felt like a dormant volcano finally erupting. I saw the wall of high-vis jackets closing in as the sun went down. There's a specific sound when a peaceful vigil turns into a scuffle. The rhythmic thud of boots on grass and the high-pitched screams that cut through the chanting. Seeing women being pinned to the floor by officers in the very place they came to feel safe? It felt like the city was breaking its own rules. To a mixed-race kid who's already been taught to keep my hands visible when a siren goes past, it was a reminder that the Common isn't just a park. It's a stage where London's biggest fears play out. The fantasy, the sleeping giant. In my head, the Common isn't just 220 acres of grass. I've always imagined that beneath the long pond and the football pitches, There's an ancient, subterranean leviathan made of clay and discarded oyster shells. The myth. When the city gets too loud or the injustice too heavy, the ground pulses. The lights of the Clapham South deep-level shelter aren't just for tours. They're the eyes of the beast waking up, the guardians, the parakeets that scream in the trees. They aren't just birds. In my version of London, they're the spies for the spirit of the South, watching every police line and every protest, waiting for the moment they need to dive-bomb the darkness away. Hard facts and realities. To understand the unrest, you have to look at the numbers. Clapham and the wider Lambeth area are a microcosm of London's friction. Category: statistics/fact. Size: 220 acres of open space, one of the largest in South London. Demographics: Lambeth is incredibly diverse. Approx. 22.9% black, 7.5% multi-ethnic, and 55% white. The Vigil, 2021. Hundreds gathered. The Met Police faced massive backlash for their heavy-handed tactics. Deep history. Below the grass lies a 1940s deep-level air raid shelter that can hold 8,000 people. The gentrification gap. While the average house price near the Common is over £900,000, the surrounding estates face high levels of deprivation. The local pulse. Living here as a mixed-race teenager means navigating two worlds. One world is the Nappy Valley side of Clapham, brunch spots and stability. The other is the reality of the statistics. Black and mixed-race Londoners are still statistically 3 to 4 times more likely to be stopped and searched in the capital than their white neighbors. When the unrest happened at the bandstand, those two worlds collided. The Common stopped being a park and became a mirror, reflecting exactly how messy and divided our city can be when the lights go out. Clapham's history is a fascinating transition from a rural getaway for the wealthy to a bustling urban hub. Here are the historical facts that shaped the area. 1. The Clapham sect and abolition. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, Clapham was the headquarters for the Clapham sect, a group of wealthy social reformers. The mission, led by William Wilberforce and Henry Thornton, they met at houses surrounding the Common to campaign for the abolition of the slave trade. Legacy. Their work led to the Slave Trade Act 1807. Much of this history is centered around Holy Trinity Church on the northeast corner of the Common. 2. Roman and Saxon origins. The road, Clapham High Street, follows the line of the ancient Roman road, Stane Street, which ran from London to Chichester. The name Clapham is thought to derive from the Old English clop, a hill, and ham, a homestead or village. It appears in the Domesday Book, 1086, as Clopham. 3. The deep-level shelters. Deep beneath the northern line at Clapham South, Clapham Common, and Clapham North lie massive World War II air raid shelters. The scale, built in 1942, they consist of 2 parallel tunnels divided into upper and lower berths, designed to house up to 8,000 people during the Blitz. Windrush connection. In 1948, the first 492 Caribbean immigrants from the HMT Empire Windrush were temporarily housed in the Clapham South deep-level shelter. This is why nearby Brixton became a historic soul of the British Caribbean community. It was the nearest labour exchange to the shelter. 4. The evolution of the Common. From grazing to leisure, originally common land for manorial tenants to graze livestock, it was officially converted into a park by an Act of Parliament in 1877. The bandstand, built in 1890, the Clapham Common Bandstand is the largest in London and one of the oldest Victorian cast iron bandstands in the UK. Historical data table. Era. Significance. Key event/feature. 1086. Domesday Book. Recorded as a small manor worth £10. 1700s. Rural retreat. Wealthy merchants built grand villas to escape London's smog. 1807. Abolitionism successfully lobbies to slave trade. 1860s. Transport boom. The arrival of the railways turned Clapham into a commuter suburb. 1948. Windrush generation. Arrival of Caribbean migrants housed in Clapham South shelters. 5. The Great Plague. During the Great Plague of 1665, many wealthy Londoners fled to Clapham, believing the elevated ground and fresher air of the South London hills would protect them from the disease. This started the trend of Clapham being a desirable location for the city's elite. 6. Famous residents. Samuel Pepys. The famous diarist spent the final years of his life in Clapham, dying there in 1703. Captain Cook's wife, Elizabeth Cook, lived in Clapham for many years following the death of the famous explorer. The current landscape of the conflict between the US, Israel, and Iran has reached a boiling point in early 2026. This weekend specifically has seen a behind enemy line scenario play out in real time. The Plane Down story, April 3-5, 2026. Just 48 hours ago, on Friday, April 3rd, the conflict escalated when a US F-15E Strike Eagle was shot down over southwestern Iran. This was the first US fighter jet lost in the 5-week-long war. The pilot's rescue. The pilot successfully ejected and was rescued almost immediately on Friday by 2 US military helicopters. However, the mission turned hot when one of the rescue choppers was hit by small arms fire, wounding crew members. The colonel in the desert. The second crew member, a high-ranking colonel and weapons systems officer, remained missing in the Iranian wilderness for nearly 2 days. The race for the colonel. Both U.S. Special Forces and Iran's Revolutionary Guard, IRGC, scrambled teams to find him. It was described by officials as a, quote, needle in a haystack mission, deep behind enemy lines. Success. Early this morning, Sunday, April 5th, President Trump confirmed on Truth Social, "We got him." A specialized commando unit, backed by heavy air support, successfully extracted the colonel. He is injured but reportedly in stable condition. Bizarre facts and war oddities. War often produces surreal moments that sound like movie plots. Here are some of the most striking facts from the current 2026 conflict. The Warthog Paradox. At almost the exact same time the F-15 was shot down on Friday, an A-10 Warthog, a rugged ground attack plane, also crashed near the Strait of Hormuz. While Iran claimed they shot it down, the pilot was rescued from the Persian Gulf shortly after. Friendly fire fiasco. In a bizarre and tragic incident earlier this March, 3 US F-15Es were accidentally shot down by a Kuwaiti air defense system in a massive friendly fire error. The 48-hour ultimatum. As of today, Iran has rejected a 48-hour ultimatum from the US to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil route. If they don't, the US has threatened all hell will rain down on Iranian energy sites by April 6th. Sky-high prices. Because of the closure of the strait, global oil and gas prices have spiked to record levels, affecting everything from London's petrol stations to global shipping. The wider war context. Feature. Fact. /status. April 2026. Main objective. US/Israel state. They are aiming for regime change and the dismantling of Iran's. The 2026 oil crisis is the result of a direct military confrontation in the Middle East that has effectively choked off the world's most important energy artery. As of today, April 5th, 2026, the global economy is bracing for a mass escalation within the next 24 hours. Here is the breakdown of why this is happening and what it looks like on the ground. 1. The choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. The crisis is centered on the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman. The blockage. Iran has effectively closed the strait in response to US and Israeli military strikes. The scale. Usually, about 20% of the world's oil and 20% of global liquefied natural gas, LNG, passes through this gap every day. With it closed, roughly 20 million barrels of oil per day are stuck. The supply shock. The International Energy Agency, IEA, has called this the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. 2. The 48-hour ultimatum. The tension has reached a peak because of a deadline set by the US administration. The deadline. President Trump issued an ultimatum demanding Iran reopen the strait by 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, April 6, 2026. The threat. If the deadline passes without the strait opening, the US has threatened all hell will rain down, specifically targeting Iranian energy infrastructure and power plants. The rejection. Iranian military commanders have formally rejected the ultimatum, calling it foolish and vowing to defend their territory. 3. Economic impact. Prices at the pump. The hidden war has become very visible to everyday people through rising costs. Oil prices. Brent crude has surged from around 70 TO over *120 per barrel *, with some analysts predicting it could hit $150 if the ultimatum leads to further bombing. US petrol. The national average has jumped to $4.10 per gallon, up more than $1 since the conflict began in February. Shipping and logistics. Amazon has introduced a 3.5% fuel surcharge for third-party sellers, and the US Postal Service is seeking an 8% surcharge to keep up with transportation costs. UK energy. In London and across the UK, wholesale gas prices have doubled because Qatar, a major UK supplier, has had to halt LNG production following drone strikes on its facilities. 4. Summary of the situation. Factor. Current status, April 5th, 2026. Crude oil price, approximately $120 plus per barrel. Strait status, effectively closed/no-go zone. Key deadline, Monday, April 6th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Global impact, fuel rationing in SE Asia. Soaring heating/electric bills in Europe. The bottom line, we are currently in a wait-and-see window. If diplomacy through mediators like Pakistan and Turkey fails before tomorrow night's deadline, the energy crisis could transition from a supply disruption to a total infrastructure collapse if regional oil fields and refineries become active targets. The bells of St. Peter's Basilica didn't ring for celebration on this Sunday in 2026. They tolled with a heavy rhythmic mourning that echoed across the Tiber. From the balcony of the Apostolic Palace, the Pope looked out over a Rome that felt more like a fortress than a sanctuary. In a world gripped by the April oil crisis and the looming 48-hour ultimatum in the Middle East, the pontiff's voice was a singular, fragile thread of dissent. War is always a defeat, he declared, his words aimed directly at the superpowers on the brink of fire. But to understand this moment, you have to look at the ghosts of the men who stood on these same stones 500 years ago. The Medici puppet masters, In the 15th and 16th centuries, the Pope wasn't just a spiritual leader, he was a king with an army. The Medici family of Florence, the godfathers of the Renaissance, understood power ultimate prize. The strategy, they didn't just want to be rich, they wanted the papacy. They produced 4 popes, Leo X, Clement VII, Pius IV, and Leo XI. The irony, while they funded the most beautiful in human history, they were masters of behind-enemy lines politics, using the church's wealth to bankroll wars across Europe to protect their banking interests. Da Vinci, the architect of war. We think of Leonardo da Vinci as a man of peace and painting, but he was the ultimate defense contractor of his day. The secret history. In 1502, he worked for the ruthless Cesare Borgia, the son of Pope Alexander VI. The invention Da Vinci didn't just paint the Mona Lisa, he designed terrifying tanks, multi-barreled cannons, and giant crossbows. He was a man caught between his genius for creation and the reality that in Renaissance Italy, if you weren't building weapons for the Pope or the Dukes, you weren't eating. The Great Divorce, Rome versus England. The tension we see today between Western powers and traditional religious authority started with a spectacular fallout in 1533. The conflict, Henry VIII of England wanted an annulment from Catherine of Aragon. Pope Clement VII, a Medici, refused, not just because of theology, but because he was literally a prisoner of the Holy Roman Emperor, Catherine's nephew. The result? Henry broke away, declared himself head of the Church of England, and began centuries of religious Cold War between London and Rome. It changed the map of the world forever, turning England from a Roman outpost into a global empire that would eventually play a lead role in the Middle East conflicts of the 20th and 21st centuries. Historical comparison, power and conflict. Feature, Renaissance Rome, 1500s. The global crisis, 2026. Main conflict. Italian wars, France versus Spain versus papacy. US, Israel versus Iran, oil/nuclear. Tech weapon. Da Vinci's fighting vehicles. F-15E Strike Eagles and stealth drones. The Pope's role, warlord and political player, moral arbiter and voice for peace. The England link, break from Rome/birth of Anglicanism. Strategic ally to US energy crisis hub. The present moment, as the Pope calls for peace today, he is fighting a history where his predecessors were the ones fueling the fires. In the streets of Rome, Italian teenagers, much like the kids in South London, watch the news on their phones, seeing the same cycle of great men making decisions that could lead to great ruins. Whether it's a Medici Pope commissioning a fresco while a city burns, or a modern leader counting down an ultimatum, the story of Rome and England has always been a tug-of-war between the spirit of the people and the steel of the state. The question for 2026 is, will the bells of St. Peter's eventually ring for a peace that the Medicis never could have imagined? The Doctanian story you are hearing about is actually a major archaeological breakthrough from just a few weeks ago, involving the real-life man who inspired the famous cartoon and the Three Musketeers novels. On March 25th, 2026, news broke that archaeologists believe they have finally found the body of Charles de Batz-Castelmore, better known as the real D'Artagnan. The discovery, March 2026, location. The remains were found under a collapsed floor in the Church of St. Peter and St. Paul in Maastricht, Netherlands. The evidence, a skeleton, was discovered in a spot reserved for high-ranking figures. Next to the body, archaeologists found a French coin from the mid-1600s, and, most tellingly, a musket ball lodged in the chest/throat area. The history, the real D'Artagnan was a captain of the Musketeers for King Louis XIV. He died in 1673 during the siege of Maastricht. Historical records from that day say he was killed by a musket ball to the throat, matching the state of the skeleton found. DNA testing. As of right now, April 2026, DNA samples from the teeth are being analyzed in a laboratory in Munich to compare them with known living descendants of the de Batz family. Bizarre and Dogtanian connection facts. The animation. While the skeleton is human, the world knows him best as the beagle-like hero from the 1980s cartoon Dogtanian and the Three Muskehounds. The creator of the show actually based the dog's personality on his own spaniel, Sam. The burial mystery. For over 350 years, D'Artagnan's burial place was one of France's great cold cases. Many believed he was buried in an unmarked mass grave after the battle, but finding him in a church suggests he was given a hero's secret burial. The Iron Mask theory. Some bizarre historical theories once claimed the real D'Artagnan didn't die at Maastricht, but was actually the man in the iron mask hidden away by the king. This skeleton find effectively kills that legend. Quick stats, the real Dogtanian. Detail, fact. Real name, Charles de Batz Castelmore, Count D'Artagnan. Died June 25th, 1673, age approx 60. Found March 25th, 2026. Cause of death, musket ball, found with the remains. Legacy, inspiration for 30-plus movies, 5 TV series, and 1 iconic cartoon dog. It's a wild moment for history. Just as the world is focused on the current 2026 conflict in the Middle East, a 350-year-old soldier who defined the one for all for one spirit has finally come home. The story of Artemis is a journey from the moonlit forests of ancient Greece to the lunar craters of 2026. Whether she's a goddess with a silver bow or a massive rocket sitting on a launch pad in Florida, the Artemis name is always linked to 2 things, the hunt and the moon. 1. The myth, the untamed goddess. In Greek mythology, Artemis was the daughter of Zeus and Leto, and the twin sister of Apollo. The midwife, bizarrely, myth says she was born first and immediately helped her mother deliver her twin brother Apollo. This made her the patron of childbirth. Despite being the goddess of virginity, the protector, she was fierce. When the hunter Actaeon accidentally saw her bathing in a forest pool, she didn't just get angry, she turned him into a stag and watched as his own hunting dogs tore him to pieces. The moon. While Apollo was the sun, Artemis became the moon, driving a silver chariot across the night sky. 2. The modern mission, Artemis 2026. As of today, April 5th, 2026, the name Artemis is the most important word in space exploration. We are currently in the Artemis era. The goal, NASA's Artemis program aims to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon. The Gateway. Unlike the Apollo missions, which were touch and go, Artemis is building a lunar gateway, a small space station that will orbit the moon like a permanent pit stop. The 2026 status. We are currently preparing for Artemis 2, the first crewed flight of the Orion spacecraft. It's scheduled to fly astronauts around the moon later this year or early next, paving the way for the Artemis 3 moon landing. 3. Bizarre Artemis facts. Fact category. The bizarre detail. The golden spiders. The Artemis rockets use specialized insulation that looks like gold foil but is actually a complex polymer. During testing, engineers found that local spiders in Florida were attracted to the vibration and were nesting in the engine vents. The Lost Temple. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. In 356 BC, a man named Herostratus burned it to the ground solely because he wanted his name to be famous in history. The Moon Shadow. NASA chose the name because Artemis is Apollo's twin. Since the 1960s were the Apollo years, the 2020s are the Artemis years, a poetic return to the same family. Space poop. Because Artemis missions last longer than Apollo, NASA held a space poop challenge to design a suit that could handle human waste for up to 6 days in case of an emergency. The winner received $30,000. 4. The historical Artemis of England. Even London has an Artemis connection. During the Renaissance, Queen Elizabeth I was often portrayed as Artemis, or Diana, in poetry and paintings. The symbolism. By linking herself to the virgin goddess of the hunt, Elizabeth signaled that she was married to England and didn't need a king. The Moon Queen. Just as the Pope in Rome was claiming divine right, Elizabeth used the Artemis image to show she was the celestial light of the north. Where we are now, in the middle of the 2026 oil crisis and the tensions in Iran, the Artemis program represents the escape valve. While things are heated on Earth, the eyes of the world are looking at the moon, waiting for the silver chariot, now made of aluminum and titanium, to make its return. The moon landing conspiracy is one of the world's most enduring modern myths. Even now, in April 2026, as NASA's Artemis 2 mission has just successfully launched to carry a crew around the moon, the old whispers from the 1960s are still surprisingly loud. In fact, recent surveys show that over 30% of some demographic groups still believe the original Apollo 11 landing was a Hollywood production. Here is the breakdown of the evidence versus the reality, and the new twists added by the 2026 missions. The classic clues and the science. Conspiracy theorists often point to a few specific anomalies in the 1969 footage. Scientists have debunked these for decades, but the stories persist. The waving flag. Critics say the flag ripples as if in a breeze, but there's no wind on the moon. The reality. The flag was held up by an L-shaped telescopic pole. It waves only when the astronauts are physically twisting the pole into the ground, causing it to vibrate in a vacuum. The lack of stars. Why is the sky pitch black with no stars? The reality. It was daytime on the moon. Because the lunar surface is highly reflective and the astronauts' suits are bright white, the camera's exposure had to be set very short. Stars are too faint to show up under those settings, just like you can't see stars in a photo of a football stadium at night. Non-parallel shadows. Some claim multiple light sources, studio lights, caused shadows to point in different directions. The reality. The uneven lunar terrain, craters, hills, and slopes distorts the appearance of shadows. You can recreate this effect on Earth by shining a single light on a bumpy, dusty surface. The 2026 twist. The Artemis proof. The current Artemis program, which successfully launched Artemis 2 on April 1st, 2026, is actually making things harder for conspiracy theorists. 1. LRO imagery. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has taken high-resolution photos of the Apollo landing sites. You can clearly see the descent stages of the modules, the lunar rover tracks, and even the astronauts' footpaths, which have remained undisturbed for 50-plus years. 2. The Why Go Back. Argument. Skeptics often ask, if we went in the 60s, why haven't we been back? The answer in 2026 is simple. Money and necessity. Apollo was a Cold War race. Artemis is about building a permanent base. 3. The Lunar Gateway shift. Interestingly, in March 2026, NASA officially shelved plans for the Lunar Gateway space station to prioritize a direct moon base. Some online theorists are already claiming this pivot is a cover-up for technical failures, but engineers maintain it's just a faster way to get boots back on the ground. Bizarre moon theories. Aside from the faked landing, there are some truly wild theories that have gained traction in the 2026 news bubble. The hollow moon. A theory that the moon is actually an ancient, hollowed-out spaceship or Death Star placed there by aliens. This gained popularity after the Apollo 12 mission deliberately crashed a module into the moon and reported that it rang like a bell for an hour. Seismologists say this is just due to the moon's dry, rigid structure. The Nazi moon base, an old sci-fi trope that suggests a secret colony has existed on the dark side of the moon since 1945. Stanley Kubrick's confession. A long-running rumor says director Stanley Kubrick filmed the Apollo 11 landing and left clues in his movie The Shining, like Danny's Apollo 11 sweater. Summary of Moon Beliefs, 2026. Belief. Scientific status. Modern context. Apollo was faked. Debunked. Belief is rising among younger, digital native generations. Van Allen belts. Proven safe.
Bluetooth
Modern
mode.
ARTEMIS shields are tested specifically for these radiation zones. Alien bases, no evidence. High-res mapping by China, India, and the US has found 0 structures. The moon is hollow. False. Gravity measurements confirm a solid, though complex, core. As we watch the Artemis 2 crew orbit the moon this week, the conspiracy won't disappear. For some, the fact that we can go now only makes them more suspicious of why it took so long, proving that in the age of information, the hardest thing to land isn't a rocket, but the truth.